Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Passing the Torch. I'm Jason David. I'm probably not the guy that you're used to for watching this podcast, but we're going to flip the script because this is episode 101. This is probably the landmark episode as we go into the next generation. We'd call it the bicentennial, but it's not because we're going to have thousands of episodes, hopefully, as this program continues to gain traction, interviewing the top leaders, executives, thought leaders, people of industry, and of course, military insight and folks that are able to bring to the table things that are valuable to you. So on today's 101st episode, I'd actually like to bring in one of the first guests, and he doesn't even know he's a guest, but the original author of this podcast, and it's none other than Martin Foster. So, of course, I'd like to bring you in. Martin, how are you doing today?
Jason, thank you. That was phenomenal. Thank you for hosting my show and for this honor.
Of course. Well, it's not your show, Martin. It is actually my show. This is kind of like when Stephen Colbert takes over Jimmy Kimmel's show, right?
That's right.
So we've got a lot on the plate today, man. And, you do a very good job of asking people about their lives, their thought processes, their leadership acumen, and of course, the things that they've done in this life that they're able to yield that experience and share with others to hopefully enlighten them, motivate them, inspire them, so on and so forth. But what I really want to know, after watching many of your podcasts, is who is Martin Foster? Can you just give me a 60-second elevator pitch of who you are and why we're interviewing you today? And of course, the reason is I'm very interested, and I know other viewers are interested too because they hear you talk, but they don't know anything about you.
That's a great point. I've had my podcast for 8 years, and I haven't really been a guest on many podcasts. But who I am as a person, just in summary, I mean, there's so many rabbit holes I could go down. I feel I'm an authentic storyteller, and it's something I take a lot of pride in as I continue to do this podcast more and more. It's the layer I've started to reveal about myself. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. I'm an airman. I'm a friend. I'm a mentor. I'm a mentee, and I'm a dreamer. I'm someone who I don't know. There's just something about
All of this sounds like a Taylor Swift song,
it.
Martin. You know that, right?
Yeah,
Just
but there's no
saying.
bad blood between us, Jay. Like
Okay, very
there's only
good, very good.
yeah.
I'm
Um,
not the dirty ex-boyfriend. I get it. So please continue.
I just man, I I'm just a dreamer. And there's been so many times in my life where man, I have to bet on myself, and I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room. And my background and some of the people I've worked with in the military. It's rare that I'm ever the smartest person in the room, but if I think one key thing about me is I feel like I've always been one of the most resourceful people in the room, and I love just connecting and just serving people. It's a passion of mine. There's been so many stories throughout my life and career, even before I joined the military, where I just wanted to help other people. Um, so that's probably the 60-second sales pitch, I guess, on me for right now.
No, I dig it. I dig it. So do me a favor. Tell me of your family makeup. What is the DNA of the Foster family at the house? What pets do we have? What skeletons do we have in the closet that you want to tell me about and share with the rest of the internet? I need to know all of it, all the drama, man.
All the drama. So my husband, my wife Laura, we got married in August of 2002, so a little over 23 years, and we started dating in January of 2001. So we've been together for coming up on 25 years, which I actually didn't think about until I was driving home the other day. The fact that my wife and I have been together for almost 25 years. Um, we're fortunate enough to have two beautiful, amazing, healthy kids. Our daughter Haley, she just turned 14, and that's just a whole thing in itself to have. The fact that I have a 14-year-old daughter, and we have our son Bowen. There's a little bit of an age gap between our daughter and Bowen. It's because we were told we couldn't have any more kids after our daughter. That's why there's a 6-year age gap. Actually, there was a 3%. We were given a 3% chance. But I can remember telling my wife, this is actually when we were in Hawaii, Jay. We were told that, I'll never forget, we were getting all the tests done. We were told that only 3% chance. But I told my wife, like, but no one's taken into account 100% of Martin Foster. And flash,
Oh, I love that.
yeah. And, fast forward, here we are, and our son is 7 and wild and crazy. And yeah. Love him. And we have a dog, Shadow. He's a lab mix. We think he's mixed. We adopted him. So he's a foster dog, literally, and I guess figuratively. But um, we think he's mixed with a German short hair pointer. And he's brought so much more happiness to our life. So that's the family makeup. And I can go deeper if needed, just about my upbringing and all that stuff. But
Yeah, we'll get into that soon. But what I am able to extrapolate from, the pride and the smiles that come from you when you're talking
yeah,
about your family, especially when it comes to your son, right? You achieved a lot of success in the military. You achieved rank and position and all the different accolades because we're retired now, right? So, but when you're in all those things, mattered at that time. What we aren't often reminded about while we're serving is that everything has an expiration date in the U.S. government, right? Checks have an expiration date. Service has an expiration date. We may be airmen for life. We may be service members for life and veterans. But those daily duties, right? The things that we find important, they end up not being that important when you zoom out, like Google zoom out, like on a map, and then everything becomes tiny. Like one of those very fancy paintings at the Smithsonian. Instead, I think it's a Monet where you see all the little dots. And then, of course, that's how we look at our military careers. And when you're talking about your family, I can see the pride of the accomplishment of your son's birth in general, right? They said that there'd be less than a 3% chance that you'd even have another kid. And of course, with your wit and your charm, you're able to bring it back and say, hey, you haven't met me yet. I'm a part of that 3%. And that's something to be extremely proud of. And that's one of the many reasons why I agreed to do this podcast with you, that I allowed you to be on my show, right? Passing the torch, at
that's
least
right.
for tonight.
Yeah.
And have a good conversation with you because I think you embody a mantra that was given to me many, many years ago. So as you know, Martin, I'm a Purple Heart recipient. I was in the hospital for a long time. I did a lot of surgeries. The docs built me back up. And my boss, when I was deployed, the second deployment afterwards, she wrote me on a performance feedback form, like right in the middle of the deployment. I'm not sure why paperwork was, very important at the time, but I was leading a lot of troops. And she wrote just in this huge box, like white space, where you're supposed to put in, I think, maybe 30 sentences. She wrote one sentence, Martin, just one. It said, there are opportunities in every challenge. That's all she wrote. Now you would think that that's like a lazy approach from a supervisor. Oh, but it's not, because when you're a thinker, and you're a thinker like I am, when you're a dreamer, when you're able to let something marinate, man, it just takes a hold of you. And it changed my life. There are truly opportunities in every challenge. And I think you've been living that, even though you don't say those words. I think you've been living it for a long time.
That's a great, I do. And I just one of the best compliments I ever received was I don't know if you know Susan Mace, retired chief. She was out in Hawaii with us, but um she told me a couple years ago, and I forgot I had someone on the podcast, and she called me. She was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you got that person." But she was like, "Martin, she called me. She said, "Martin, I love that you just do it. Like it's just, you just go for it." And that meant a lot to me, just because I felt like for a long time I was misunderstood in my adult life, that people just couldn't see what I was trying to envision, or if they couldn't understand it, they would constantly question, because I've never felt like I was in the box thinker. I've always felt like I was definitely, to use like an outlier, to use Malcolm Gladwell's term. So it was just refreshing, because that was probably the first time in my military career where someone just kind of acknowledged and appreciated that, hey, like, I don't want to critique you. I just want to, um, um, I'm trying to think of a word, encourage you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I dig that. What I'd like to know from your mind, you are the mastermind behind this podcast, in theory, since I now own it, right? What is the reason that it is named Passing the Torch? What is the mindset behind it? What did you envision when you crafted this podcast? Take me behind the curtain, my friend.
Man, so a couple of different things. There was so many, I think it's easy. Not like, I never really talk about my rank in my podcast. It's only people who know me, and it has come up like a couple times, right, over 100 plus episodes. But for the people who know me or see me at work, they see my rank, and they might see like, oh, must be nice, right? Or they don't. There's been a lot of storms throughout my career. There was a time in my career, probably it was back to back assignments, so roughly a 7 year stretch that was just super rough for me. And I found myself I was trying to search for something that I could not find in the present. And as I was looking for that, I kept thinking about this is around 2014, 2015 timeframe. And I started thinking like, man, like what is it that I'm seeking? What is it I'm looking for? And it would be these conversations that I had in the years prior, those random great impromptu mentorship conversations where someone pulled me aside or someone, someone I looked up to. And I'm like, man, I wish there was a way that I could have recorded that conversation and go back and listen to it at will. At the same time, and I still am, I'm a huge sports fanatic, big time into sports. So I had started a sports podcast, I think in 2014, actually in 2012, kind of was the genesis of that. And I loved it, but sports is so hard to keep up with. I mean, you have to basically be 24/7 for it to be successful. So I eventually just stopped doing the sports podcast. And then around 2014, 2015, 2016, was constantly just emailing back old supervisors or mentors just for that to kind of recap the conversation from 5 years prior. Right.
It's funny because you and I are older. Do you remember where most of those conversations happened? Because I know I wasn't even there with you, and I know where
Yeah.
most of those conversations. Because 20 years ago, everyone used to smoke in the Air Force. I
Oh,
mean, it's
yeah. The
terrible
smoke.
for
Oh,
you,
yeah.
right?
The smoke pit. Right. I didn't even
Absolutely
smoke.
terrible. No,
Yeah.
yeah, and I had a lot of friends that didn't smoke, and they would intentionally go to the smoke pit to find out information,
Yeah.
right? Like what is the skinny, what is the drama, and then at the same time, if you ever really wanted to learn from the crusty master sergeant, right, or the honorary lieutenant colonel that just wanted to get out of the office,
Yeah.
but they were geniuses, right, and they knew they had all the answers, you could find them on the smoke deck.
That's great. Yeah, you're right, Jason. That's a great point. The good
It's
old
so
smoke pit,
funny.
like that should be in the Air Force Enlisted Heritage Museum, like right next to
Yeah.
CZ's display, like the the smoke pit. Uh, but
Yeah, because it is a thing of the past, but that is very much where a lot of that were those gems, those nuggets,
yeah,
and again, of course, you and I are not promoting smoking by any means, but
yes,
this is just a look in the past of like where that information came from, and of course, people listening to this, they're all going to shake their heads and be like, "Yep, that's exactly where it happened." And it's funny, as the years have gone by, and I think you'll probably agree to this, Martin. Those smoke deck conversations, they stopped happening as frequently, right? And people were, um, I guess, maybe more focused on them. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And this isn't like the old generation, yelling "get off my lawn" at the new generation. It's just it's just that every couple of years there's a dynamic change. There's a shift in the military of what people are geared toward, what motivates them. Some people came into the military, back when we did, looking for a job. Right. 5 years later, all these people wanted to go to college. 10 years after that, they wanted a subject matter expertise field that they can do for 4 years and then go straight to industry. These trends happen all the time. But what I had noticed was that there was less and less professional development because people, and I would say leaders, senior leaders, were not finding the same value that our leaders felt. So, AFSA meetings used to be brimming with people. Like when I first joined, like you could not get a seat at the club when there was an AFSA meeting. I went to one right before I retired a few years ago, and maybe there was like 15 people. You know what
yeah,
I mean? The same weight on, networking and professional orgs. And maybe because those are intrinsically tied to not say promotion, but for standing, right? So volunteer opportunities that showcase leadership, which equate to something that looks good on an evaluation. All those things are helpful. But what happens is when you frame them as these, you're only doing these things and it's not really a part of your job, I think you miss the big picture, which is what you and I have found to be of the most value post-military, is that your network is truly your net worth, right? And you learn those networking skills in private organizations. You learn them by doing base-wide events. You do them by going to school on base and meeting fellow students. All these things are very, very helpful. And of course, we do sound like curmudgeon-y, retired senior leaders, again, shaking our fists on the front lawn, but these things are important, right?
yeah, and I'm going to put a pin on that in a second. So you talked about base events because I'm going to bring that back up. But so passing the torch. So kind of flash forward. Was searching for something I couldn't find in the present. And they kind of had the inkling for this podcast, right? Then in 2017, I read the book Leading with Honor by Lee Ellis, a Vietnam POW. And it really, and to be honest, it was probably the first book that I read since high school. other than the PDT, of course. Um, and it really taught me about perspective. And then I read Extreme Ownership from Jocko around that time. But anyway, so that kind of put the leading with honor. It started made me think about just mentorship. And then on New Year's Eve, December 31st of 2017, I was at a party and I just said, everyone was talking about their resolutions for the upcoming year. I said, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast, a leadership podcast. And then 2 weeks later, I had my first episode. It was General Jumper, who was the 17th Air Force Chief of Staff, was my very first guest. I didn't even have a name for my podcast at that point, but I wanted to get the ball rolling. And then as far as the name, I started thinking about what I wanted. And then it kind of came to me. I started thinking about, what is mentorship? And to me, mentorship is more than that Monday morning rah, rah, rah speech. Mentorship is
Mhm.
about taking lessons learned from your own experience and using that to develop and shape those within our sphere of influence. And then I just kind of thought like pass the torch, and then kind of evolved to passing the torch. Um, so that's really kind of the short quick on how I came up with the name passing the torch. And then it's just I just like the name, and
Mhm.
it's just something that it means a lot to me. And then but you talked about base events real quick. A couple years ago I planned the Wright Patterson Chief Recognition Ceremony. I had a co-lead. It was myself and a co-lead, so it wasn't just me. But that was something completely out of my comfort zone. But I wanted to pay it forward to the new batch of chiefs, right, from the base. And I think we had like 60 something that year because Wright Pat's pretty big. But what that did for networking for me, I was like a made man on Wright Pat after that. That if me or my organization needed anything, man, I had no problem getting it from my people, and it's all because of that networking just with my peers.
So I'd like to talk about the value of networking with you because you see it firsthand, right? I think you came back from the Military Influencers Conference not too long
Yep.
ago. You're able to meet a lot of cool people, folks that know you, folks that you have subscribed to and viewed and watched, and have taken gemstones from each of their products and services and their outreach. But as far as networking is concerned, in your opinion, right, now that you're out of the military, now that you have in essence enabled the torch passing to each person that watches your podcast, what does the power of networking mean to you as a retiree, as an ex-service member, if you will?
So my thought on this has changed over the past couple of years. One, because I started following you on LinkedIn, and you and I have known each other for like I think like 10. It might become I forget. We met like 9 or 10 years ago, and I
Yeah.
remember like the day that we met. But um, between your content, my mind is so my mindset has changed based on just following your content, and then Scott Stalker, someone that is probably someone I consider a new friend over recently. And he was actually very recently on my podcast, maybe like a month ago. We talked for 2 hours, and it felt like 10 minutes, and it was an amazing conversation. I'm actually getting goosebumps right now because it was so good.
I'm
Uh,
gonna have to send you a very sensitive and beautiful photo. So Scott and I went to an evening event together, and they made our name tapes. It says Scott Stalker and Jason David, but it looks so romantic, and they put them right next to each other. So I had to take a picture. I was like, Scott, this is aim high, semper fi. You know that, right? And he just rolled his eyes at me.
but he did something, and so I actually hit the retirement button on November 1st of last year, and I started following Scott on just paying attention to more of his LinkedIn posts, and I would save a lot of things because he would talk about the transition. Because I think he retired either in 2024 or 2023, so still very recently. And he said something in a post that just really has just been etched in my mind. And it was a longer post. Forgot 99.99% of that post, but the thing that mattered the most to me and has stuck with me, and I actually tell this to people now when I'm advising them. It's everyone talks about like it's networking, it's networking. It's all about who you know. Somewhat. That's the sub of that, the sub part. Yes, it's about who you know, but more importantly, it's about who knows you and what do they say about you. So, guys like you, or we were talking about some of the people before recording, right? Scott Stalker, it's and again just to emphasize, like that's what I think about networking now, especially at this stage, this new season of my life. Who knows you, and what are they saying, or what opportunities are they throwing your way?
No, I dig it. And what I'll do is I'll compound your answer with probably another question, but then I'll give you a little bit of perspective for me. And I do thank you for following folks like myself, folks like Scott, the veterans assistance, veteran transition, the soon to be retired or recently separated from the military audience is huge. You know what I mean? We're talking there are over 1 million service members that are serving right now, and every month, like 20,000 of them either separate and or
I didn't
retire.
realize it was that
So
much. Yeah, and
yeah, I can give you the numbers actually because
yeah.
I do it for another professional org that I do just to help them follow metrics for veterans benefits. And because that because that spigot of water, right, of veterans, separating and or retiring is constant, the information is incredibly valuable and it stays valuable, right? So if you're in this space to help others, you will find a lot of goodness in those that are willing to give their time. So again, I'll use friends like Scott and myself. So we put things out there, but we don't get paid for it, right? We didn't ask for any money, and we don't plan to monetize what it is that we're doing. It's because we used to be them, just like you used to be them. And so, whether it's the out processing, checklist that's up on my LinkedIn page, or whether it's
Oh, I printed
information
that out and I
on
got it laminated, and
nice.
and I and I I'm sorry, I made copies. Sorry, real quick, I made copies for people at work.
Did you
Yeah, for
really?
some senior NCOs and people. Yeah, because if people had seen in my office, and I made some copies, and because you could just like anyway,
Yeah, just check the box,
yeah,
right?
check the box. Yeah.
Or information on unemployment compensation for ex-service members, right? So UCX, which is unemployment, but it's specifically set for military people, right? Whether you separate, it actually helps you more if you separate at like the 4 or 8 year mark versus retiring, because they'll subsidize based off the state, and maybe they'll give you the full amount, maybe they won't. It just depends on where you live. But those are all hard things, and you were recently transitioned as well from active duty into your chapter 2. And so I'm glad that you're doing this podcast. I'm glad that you're interviewing folks and getting their perspectives. I love the fact that the vast majority of the people that you interview are retired or ex-military or have ties to the military community, because we all share in that same groaning, oh my goodness, what's next? What am I going to do next with my life? You and I have actually had a lot of one-on-one conversations about, your personal journey, and that's why we're doing this podcast,
Yeah.
to kind of get to know you more.
I know. Yeah, you said it best. And it's such a unique time that. So one of the reasons why I retired too was my dad died when he was 51. I'll be at the time of this recording, it's 29 October. I'll be 44 next week. So if I knew I was going to die in 7 years, or if anyone knew that, um, how would you want to spend that time? And for me, when I had this thought, this conversation, of course, I talked about it with my wife. It is like, hey, I love the Air Force has been incredible. Um, I wouldn't be who I am and where I am today if it wasn't for the Air Force. But I do want to explore a different path. But it's
No,
scary.
I dig it. I'm 100% there with you. I have sometimes a grim outlook on my own life. I'm not healthy medically. I can't even walk, right? Like I walk with a cane, but you would never know that because I'm sitting in this chair and I'm highly motivated, right? Um, some of the things that I think that people that are watching this podcast would probably want to ask if they could see you in person is, what is your emotional tie, right, to the people that you interview, right? So in my mind, when I hear you speak to folks, you often get complimented by the people that you're interviewing. Like, Martin, I think you're doing fantastic. I think you're asking the right questions. I think you've got a heart of gold. Like, how does that make you feel, one, as a person, and does it give you the feedback that you're looking for in doing this podcast, in getting the message out through mentorship, through guidance, through advice, and of course by sharing experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I pride myself on research, and I'm an intel analyst by trade, so it kind of makes sense now when you think about it, right? It lines up, um, and I feel like I've read over throughout my life, especially over the past 10 years or so, just read a lot of articles about critical thinking and taking classes on it and everything. But again, I pride myself on research because it's my way of paying respect to the person. To reference Scott Stalker again, you know, I did a lot of research on him because I knew he's been on a lot of podcasts, and I don't want him to answer the same stuff that he's talked about, 100 times or whatever. Um, but yeah, so for my tie to the guest, I appreciate that because I put so much time, and I've made zero money, $0 and 0 cents from my podcast. In fact, I've spent a lot of money. And Jay, you know exactly how much this microphone costs, and this headphones and everything else associated with. So over the years, it's really been a lot, but I do it because I genuinely love it. I feel like it serves other people. I've had people to give me positive feedback, even to stop me, especially over the past 6 months or so. When the guests tell me, like, man, no one's ever asked me that before, or that's a great question, or this is the best podcast I've ever done. That means the world to me just because it lets me know kind of not trying to seek external validation, but it also lets you know, like, maybe I'm on the right path and I'm on to something.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, uh, I remember one of the main reasons why I started this was Lee Ellis, who I mentioned earlier. I was able to record, I think it was episode 40 with him 2 years ago on 9/11 at AFA. So, like, it was just a full circle moment. The fact that I read this book and then 2 years later on, or whatever, I started the podcast on 9/11 and got to have with him an in-person episode was just, man, it's so good. It's, I'd say with podcasting, this has been it's been like my own personal, leadership development curriculum, my own so I really do pour my heart and soul into this. I stay up a lot till 2 o'clock in the morning, not because I have to, like, I choose to do that, but because I'm fueled by this passion to constantly learn in order to serve other people. I feel like all I wanna do is add value to people in their lives, and I feel like this is my gift, this is my talent, this is how I can add value to people, in their lives.
Well, it was definitely nice when you hosted this podcast. I mean, unfortunately, you lost it to me. But these are, of course, snippets that you're going to be able to use to throw up on social media to just kind of get people to click on. I'm not saying generate, clickbait, but I'm not saying that either. So, moving forward in this interview, right? So again, you have been overtaken. It's not undertaken,
Yeah,
right? Overtaken. You
yeah.
are not actually in control of this
Overrun?
program, right? Overrun, right? And so again, you know me, so I'm a career broadcaster. I did that in the Air Force. I even got an Emmy to my name, so these are all cool things. So at least someone with street cred in the broadcast circuit stole your podcast away from you, right? And so why are we joking about this? Well, if you're just tuning in right now, Martin and I had talked about, how do we make episode 101 special, right? And so Martin and I, of course, have a pretty special relationship by ourselves. I'd like to think that, I learn a lot from you. I think you've told me that you learn a lot from me
Absolutely.
as as time has gone on. They don't call me the veteran Sherpa for no reason, right? I
I
will
forgot
guide you.
about that. I totally forgot about
Yeah.
You're right, they do. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, it's awkward when I go to different conferences and expos, and the guys, it's young people too. They're always like, "Hey, you're the LinkedIn guy," and I'm like, "What?"
You're the
Yeah,
guy.
the veteran Sherpa dude, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's I don't know who gave me that name, but I will absolutely do my best to give the info out there that people deserve, I think, to hear. But what I don't provide is what you provide, Martin. So I give a lot of monetary valued information. Um, how to save money, the fact that if you're active duty, you should absolutely sign up for the same medical benefits that GS employees have, right? So, not sure if you remember this when we were staff sergeants or senior airmen, we could have signed our children up through benefeds.gov, which is at the end of that, out processing checklist. As a 24-year-old E5, you can get private, sort of private government eye insurance. And if your kids wear glasses, you don't have to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
I paid out of pocket for almost 2 decades. I just didn't know. So again, that's the value that I try to bring, to the social space, how we're going to save money. But the value that you bring, I think, is insights that you can't put a finger on for monetary value. The fact that you had Joe Bass on not too long ago. You had a lot of my friends actually that
Mhm.
have sat and done passing the torch episodes with you. And the coolest part is you would never hear their inner thoughts unless they did a podcast like this. And they would never have these conversations in an open forum because it's a conversation between two people. Of course, they know that people on the internet are watching and subscribing and hopefully saving these episodes. But like you had mentioned before at the very beginning, these are those behind the corner, by the water cooler in the age old smoke deck conversations that have so much more value, right? Because they're organic, they're natural. And again, it's just between two people. I hate when people say, we're going to do a fireside chat. First of all, you don't even know how to make a fire. And second, you're probably afraid of bugs and you don't want to sit outside next to a fire to begin with
And you're
because
not
then your clothes
Roosevelt,
smell like
man. You're
smoke.
not Roosevelt. Like,
Yeah, it's you don't have a cigar in your pocket. So what you really should say is that you're having a mentorship session, right? Or you're having a friendly chat between mentor and mentee, leader and protege and whatnot. But I think that's the value that this podcast, Passing the Torch, brings to the audience is that it's just inside baseball. It's inside baseball on how to win in life. It doesn't mean that you're going to get the best job, doesn't mean that you're going to get the best education, but it will give you insight into how other people have done it. So if you want to, you can mirror it yourself.
Exactly. That's a great point because I think for anyone who listens to my podcast, I think you're guaranteed to walk away better, or at least steps to become better. You mentioned Joe Bass. She was on my podcast earlier this year. And now think about it. If I were to go up to Joe Bass when she's chief master on the Air Force, say, "Hey, can I get an hour of your time just to talk?" Probably not going to happen. You might get 5. Rick's busy, but there's something about podcasting that is just inviting, and it's a way to connect. Our future is someone else's past, and tomorrow quickly becomes yesterday. Podcasting is a vehicle that can connect us to the past and get those inner thoughts. I love that you said it's kind of like the modern day smoke pit, right? Those inner thoughts. When Joe Bass was on my podcast, it was in January of this year. I asked her a question. We all see the videos that when people clap out when they leave the Pentagon, right? So whether it was, all the top leaders, right? I asked her, I said, "Hey, if I were to, like, you get the clap out and you're walking out of the steps for the last time as the chief master on the Air Force in your blues, if I were to ask you in that moment, what are you running from and what are you running toward? What would your answer be?" And that just revealed a whole like deep thought from her perspective that you're not going to get anywhere else out of podcasting. You're not going to get that at fireside chat. You're not going to get that at some all call or some email. So that's why, like, I love podcasting, and I think podcasting it's an untapped. I think we're in the early innings of the power of podcasting. Um, yeah, it's a way to connect. It's storytelling for an audience of one.
Yeah, no, I dig it. It's also kind of creepy because you're just watching two people talk to each other. It's basically like sitting on a park bench watching strangers speak. I'm just throwing that
We
out there,
should
man.
do that.
It is a little
That should
weird.
be our. You and I should start a podcast, like, just and we'll
So yeah,
just,
you and I could be the people watchers, right? People
and just do
watchers
commentary.
2025.
That would be fun, actually. Just a scouting report, or just a
Uh,
that would be really
yeah,
good.
we could do commentary on people. Like we could watch other people's podcasts and then mute them and just talk over them, right? Oh, so this is what this guy's actually saying. We could absolutely do that. See, I've already made Martin pass out. He's having too good of a
That's
time. You think I'm joking? This is high, high value, high dollar content that we could absolutely put on social, and people will watch it, right? So to wrangle things back in, Martin, I know. So we're probably legitimately at the halfway point. There are some hard questions that I need to ask you
mm,
that I think if you have the answer for, I think it'll provide again a little more value, a little more substance, and of course, in my perspective, it'll garner some respect from areas that maybe you don't get it right now, right? When you started this podcast, when you had probably 20, 30, 40 guests, in the belt, right?
mhm.
In the Rolodex, all cataloged down. When did you feel like you had failed and when did you feel like you had succeeded?
Mm.
Tell us, because everyone goes through those things. Like you said, you had poured a lot of, personal funds into this. You had only you, right, cheering you on. So obviously you're cheering people that come onto the show, but no one's really there to back you, aside from me, of course, because
Yeah.
I've been backing you since the beginning, right? But I know that there was a point where you're like, oh, I don't even want to do this anymore, or why am I doing this? And then, of course, what lit that fire? What brought the flame to your torch to pass it?
Man, that's so good. One, I feel like where I've succeeded was even from the very start, the way the guests I was able to get from the very beginning. And I was recording audio at that point, audio only. I didn't start doing video until maybe like episode 20 something. Um, but first guest, General Jumper, like the first year of my podcast, I think I did 10 episodes. Episode 1 was in January. Episode 7 was in April, and that was with Chief Wright when he was Chief Master in the Air Force. So that's where I knew I was in. Other people I had on was like Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who's gone on to have like this big time career, and so the guests I was able to get right away. That's where I feel like I succeeded. Where I failed was just being consistent because I did 10 episodes that first year. I think maybe 4 in 2019. I didn't do any in 2020. I think I did a couple in 2021. Um, not very many in 2022, and then 2023, 2024, and 2025 is really. But I think I just that's where I failed, was just the consistency. And then also just letting people get in my head. The toughest conversations I have to often have are with, I think the toughest conversations period that people have are often with themselves. And I'm 100% guilty of that. And there was, I really, I started this out in Hawaii, and I would talk about it with people, and, people would make fun of me about the podcast because it's like, it wasn't that long ago, but podcast still was, it's more accepted and known now than it was, 5, 6 years ago. So I think that's where I failed, was just I let people place their ceiling for me. And then I think um I don't know exactly when, like, what fueled my fire, but I think it was just a kind of like a pot of things, a combination of things, where I realized no matter, I was seeking validation for, I wanted other people. Um, I'm not really sure how to answer that because I don't know.
So I have something for
Yeah,
you,
go ahead.
right? So obviously this podcast, this episode 101 is a blend of your life and my life, and of course we need to banter back and forth from each other like we're two Sesame Street Muppets, and we've got to keep people engaged, right? Because that's how it works. When I retired, I had wrote as a part of my retirement speech about the trials and tribulations of being me, and getting to where I'd got. I eventually retired as a command senior listed leader for defense activity. I had reached heights that I never thought that someone that looked like me would ever even get to,
Yeah,
right? And that was never the topic of discussion. It just, in my head, it wasn't a reality. But just like starting this podcast and maintaining it and doing something that you didn't think was going to yield the benefits, you started self-doubting, right?
yeah.
I've got two examples for you. So Les Brown, also a broadcaster, if you don't know his story, I love his story. um,
Was he the one that
and I'd
said
encourage,
the ghost of your past or something, or like on your deathbed? Was that him?
he has said that. He also has the story about the Chinese bamboo tree, right? I'm
Yes.
not sure if you remember
Yeah,
that
yeah,
one,
yeah.
right? So, and of course, for those who haven't watched it, he talks about how crazy your neighbors look at you when you're trying to water this bamboo tree in your front yard, and nothing happens for months and months. And so Bob from down the street says, "Oh, Martin, looks like you're watering that bamboo tree again.
Hmm.
Good luck with that, right?" Yeah, but then overnight, 6 months later, it shoots out of the ground like at lightning speed, and within 3 days, it is fully grown and it is 50 feet tall, right? And so that's your podcast. That's passing the torch. Like in your head, you might not be succeeding, but you are watering, you are nurturing the audience, this base, this followership that you have. And I've seen your numbers gain massive traction, especially over the past 6 months, because you continue to water the bamboo tree, right? And the only reason I brought up my retirement before is when I retired, I had written into the last part or last page of the retirement script for the haters, right? Because there are always haters. It
Yeah.
does. I think I had a pretty good relationship with most of the people that I grew up with in my life, but there are always folks out there that will take their ceilings, right, their level of potential, their limits, and they'll place them on you superficially. And so they'll say, "Well, good luck. You can't do that." No, no, no. They can't do that, right? And so then they like impress upon you. They outwardly project, what their limits are onto other people, and that's, as a society, that's how we like bring our friends
Yeah.
down, right? And so we don't need that in our life. So I'm glad you were able to break from the shackles and understand that you're going to do you, right, and it's going to be success because you envision it.
Yes, that's a good point. So maybe like, I basically felt like I had to dim my own light, or, hold myself back because I didn't want to offend other people, or I was afraid that it would make them hate me more, right? But that's with anything. I mean, if people are gonna, people are gonna hate you. Not everyone's gonna love you, right? So there's always gonna be someone that doesn't like you, and it's not because they hate you personally. They're just mad at your success, and it's not them. So that's kind of like when my set shifted. I did read the book Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield, I think maybe 2 years ago, year and a half ago, and it's not like this like groundbreaking stuff, but there's just something about the way those concepts are presented. It's an easy read, and I said, you know what, like I'm just gonna start, like I don't need to ask for anyone else's permission. I can just go for it. And yeah, my podcast is growing. So like I've had more downloads this year. My downloads this year are double than what they were in 2023 and 2024 combined. And it's only going to continue to grow. So and I found too, like I was afraid to be my authentic self before. even though I was authentic and true to myself, I did feel like I still had to hold back a little bit. But I've been
Mhm.
unapologetic about it in 2025, and I've realized that people reach out to me more, and more things are happening because it's just like the message I received, like the private messages on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
Instagram, or just in person. I mean, it continues to fuel the fire in my flame.
So I'm going to give you some feedback, Martin, and I think you and I have already talked about this. I'm going to give you a compliment that you have not received yet from any of your friends or any of the people that you've interviewed, because I've watched a lot of folks kind of give you praise for, different things, whether again, it's your research, your acumen, your ability to kind of read the room. I'm going to give you a very superficial compliment, and it is you are my favorite and number one extroverted introvert, right? So I know this is painful for you, right? All of this is painful for you because you have in your head you are probably not fueled like me. So I'm an extroverted extrovert, right? There, it's a rare breed. I get a lot of energy by looking at you, and I'm good for the rest of the day, right? But for someone like you actually have to put a lot of energy and effort into the research. I don't do any of the research. You do a lot of the research because you don't want to mess up. And so for someone like with your dynamic for being not reserved by any nature, but just like you said, you had done that Chiefs recognition ceremony and you were wildly uncomfortable, right? You
Yeah.
pushed through it, and then you became a master networker by that, that event alone. And so that already proves to me that, you know, introverts can do anything that they want. Introverts can do anything that an extrovert can do. It just comes at time and energy and sometimes money,
Yeah.
right? And so what I would like to tell you is that you have my greatest praise because it just proves your level of dedication and your level of motivation for doing this, right? So anyone who listens and pays attention, they know that you're putting like legitimate blood, sweat, and tears into
Yeah.
this because it means something to you.
Chase, thank you so much for that compliment. That might be one of the best compliments I've ever received, and I can tell you that's a first heard. I don't think no one's ever told me that. It's interesting you said that too because I heard something, and I consume a lot of podcasts, and I forget where I hear stuff sometimes. But in a podcast, someone talked about the power of networking and the difference between extroverts and introverts, and people automatically assume that extroverts are the better networkers, and that's not necessarily true. Introverts are actually could be easily considered or viewed upon as better networking and networkers because they're putting more. They want to go deeper with the connection, right? So like I mean, there's pros to both, right? But that's how I am. Is I want to just build like a deep connection with. I don't want everything to be transactional, and I feel like
Mhm.
there's a lot of things in life you can tell, and I'm sure like I mean you obviously know, there's a lot of things that are transactional, but yeah. But again, thank you. That's an ultimate compliment, especially coming from you, man. So I thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Well, this is my podcast. I did take it over, right? So as the host, I do have to give, the guest compliments and whatnot,
Yeah,
just to make sure you come back onto, episode 201 when we do this again.
that's right. Yeah.
All right. So, as we kind of come to a logical conclusion to this conversation, we're going to wrap with a couple of things. I'd like you to share a story that you have not shared with anyone in any of your podcasts, in any of your friend circles, something about your life that people deserve to know about as the host of Passing the Torch. Give me something that has something to do with your family, has something to do with your military career. It could be the start of this podcast, something important to you that is helpful. And I'll tell you one that is more comical. It's not really that important, but I'll share it with you. For an EPR bullet one day, and for those not paying attention or don't know about the Air Force enlisted evaluation system, it's your report card for the year. You have to write down things that you did, and that helps you with your standing. One year, I think it was I had organized a religious something or another and had brought together some spiritual lesson plans for this, that, and a third, and inspired people to do great things with their life. So I got my online ordained minister certificate online because I needed a bullet, right? So yeah, I did it, and it found its way into a crafty EPR bullet, right? Is that story true? We'll never know, right? But at least that's something interesting about me that I'd like to share. I'm going to turn it over to you, Mark.
Man, I'm not sure how to answer. I can tell you a funny story that happened to me in high school and a lesson that it taught me.
Please
Yeah,
do.
and it's a story people some like my friends have heard, but like it's not something I've shared like open publicly. I have been told that I have good stories, like just because Anyway, so and I hope this meets intent. But so I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and in Oklahoma, wrestling, like actual amateur folk style collegiate wrestling, it's huge. Like Texas is obviously known for football. Oklahoma football is big, but wrestling is a big deal. At least it was. So I wrestled in high school, and my sophomore year, I was horrible. I won one match. I lost. I got pinned nonstop. Then in the spring and summertime, I started lifting weights. I started going to like summer camps, and I improved big time. And there was this guy that I kept wrestling, and you basically go to these tournaments over the summer, and you essentially wrestle the same people all the time. Well, there was this one guy in Oklahoma. The class system 6A is the highest it goes for football, but for wrestling 5A is the highest. But anyway, there was so for wrestling we were 5A. There was either 4A or 5A state champion. I forget which class, but I kept wrestling him over the summer. And Jason, I would whoop him there was something about him. I just had his number. I don't know what it was, right? So constantly over the summer. Then school year starts, wrestling season starts. Our first duel head to head against another school, whatever meet, was against that school in this guy, and I knew I was going to wrestle him. And I had made varsity at this point. Now this is my junior year of high school, so it's the first duel of the season. I knew I was going to wrestle this guy, and I was like, man, I'm going to destroy this dude. A lot of people in attendance, and to include my parents. And I'll never forget. So, they're doing the intros and wrestling. I forget if I was wrestling at 135 or 140 weight class. But the announcer would call you out to the middle of the mat. It was this whole thing. The music's playing. So I was feeling myself, and I ran out to the middle of the mat, shake the guy's hand. As I'm like walking back to my to the team, I'm having like a little bit of a swagger. Simultaneously, again, I just made varsity, and we found out that the cheerleaders were going to be at our cheering for us, right? Which didn't happen a whole lot. And each wrestler would have one cheerleader cheering for them and doing backflips whenever their name was called. So for me, the cheerleader for me was Amanda C. I won't say her last name. Mm-hmm. But Jason, let's just say this is back in the 90s. Amanda C was walking in slow motion before Jennifer Love Hewitt made it cool. So Amanda C was doing it like she was the it girl in high school. I had a major crush on her. And she drove a really cool car. She drove this red Eclipse. That was really cool. So as I'm like walking, back this way, I remember I looked over to my parents in the stands just to give them like a acknowledgement. As I'm going this way, she's doing cartwheels this way. And this is where I learned about physics and, all the motions. So as my chest is exposed like this, because I'm going like that, she's doing backflips this way. And she literally like mule kicks me in my chest, like and I immediately fall, like the perfect timing of this. I immediately fall to my back. And then you just hear like the loud smack because she fell on her face on the wrestling mat. And I mean, everyone's uproar into laughter. I mean, it's one of those things. And someone actually recorded it, just happened to be recording it. And they submitted it to America's, God, what was the show with,
America's Funniest Home Videos?
Yeah, with Bob's, Bob's, or whoever was hosting it at the time, yeah. Because I think this is in 98 or 99, I forget, but...
AFT, yeah.
Yeah, I guess this would have been in 1998, but, damn, 98, holy cow. Jeez, that's such a long time ago. But you hear the loud splat, and then with wrestling, they didn't always start with the 103. They didn't, like when they started the matches, it wasn't always in order of like the lowest weight to the highest weight. Sometimes they would start in the middle, right? So they started it with my weight class. We were the first match. I was not composed. I was devastated, embarrassed. I mean, it's high school. So I got pinned in like 30 seconds. And this is guy, I owned him all throughout the summer. So got pinned, and then just awkward. And then, my stepdad gave me some whatever random pep talk afterwards on the that night. And I remember I was like, my life is over. Well, I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning, right? Life goes on. Here's what happens with that story. Um, I remember on the way to school, I was like, you know what? I'm going to own this. I'm going to lean into it. So I stopped at Circle K and I bought, they sold like fake roses. And I don't remember exactly what color it was, but I bought like, some fake flowers. Um, Went to school, went to Amanda C's locker. She was with two of her friends. So I went up to her and I said, Amanda, and I tried to make a joke about the situation. Everyone was talking about it. I said, I handed her flowers. I says, Amanda, I think I'm falling for you. Just making reference to last night, right? With the getting
Mhm.
kicked. And she immediately slammed her locker shut, made like this big huff, like, and like smacked the flower out of my hand. And the moral of that story is sometimes that's just life, just you get kicked, and it's bears. There's no like cool quote or anything I have.
I wanna point out that that was the most prolific dad joke that you could
I know,
possibly
I
administer,
know.
and this is well before you became a dad of 2
Yeah.
children, you
I
know
had
what I
my
mean?
time,
I
right?
mean, kudos for that right off the
Yeah,
bat.
I mean, some people call me Fosterdamus, but maybe it's just
Yep.
me. But, and it was just and this is the middle of my junior year of high school, and people remember this for the next year and a half of my time in high school, which a year and a half in high school, looking back now,
It's
was
it's
it's
eternity.
eternity,
Yeah, of
right?
course. Yeah.
Um, and but it's just one of those things where sometimes like that just happens, right? Like there's no Hollywood ending where everything works out. I mean, it did work out for me, but in that moment, she wasn't like, "Hey, it happens." It was embarrassing, but you just gotta just get up and just move on. But I say all that. There's a quote that like now that I tell that story, and there's a quote that I heard a couple years ago that is that I remind myself often is like life is always going to kick us in the teeth or whatever, right? But we don't grow despite the storms. We grow because of the storms. And there's been a lot of storms in my life, whether high school or even my adulthood and the military. But as much as it sucks, we are growing from it, and that's the moral of that
I
story.
agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And again, as a combat wounded veteran myself, I tell you that although the military and the government likes to do resiliency training, right? And no discredit to anyone who's out there that's certified in resiliency training. Resiliency is not something that happens, right? From someone else. It doesn't go from one person to another. It's not electricity. Resiliency is a state of mind which you embody, my friend,
Thank you.
right? If you want to survive, if you want to succeed, there's so much power in the desire and the intent to want to do something, right? And again, you wanting to start this podcast, wanting to create a forum where passing the torch opens the doors, or at least opens the back door, so you can hear the conversations that are happening in the back between two friends. I think that's just a beautiful thing. But with that said, we have about 3 minutes left, so we can cap off this hour. I'm going to tell you a joke, and you're going to sprinkle this, intermittently as you do the editing. And it's about dinosaurs. You ready for
I'm
this?
ready, man. Let's go.
Okay, so this is Dinosaurs by Jason David. How the military rank structure equates to each of my favorite dinosaurs growing up as a kid. So, as you know, you came into the military and you went to basic training, and somewhere in those first couple years, you hung out with a lot of junior service members. So, if you're in the Army, a lot of privates. If you're in the Navy, a lot of seamen. If you're in the Marines, Marines all have like such stoic, like Lance Corporal sounds like it's just a mighty, warrior, and I think it's an E3 or an E4. I'm joking, Scott, if you're listening. And then, of course, in the Air Force, you have airmen all the way up until senior airmen. So when I look at E1 through E4, it reminds me now that I'm retired and I'm looking back on your life and my old life. Remember those pygmy dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, the ones that are like this big?
Yeah, yeah.
They like just jump around, and they're not really threatening until there's like 50 of them, right? And then it's bad. Then it's that. Have you been to an airman's dorm party before? Like that's just danger all over it. So again, I equate E1 through E3 as those pygmy dinosaurs. And then you get to the senior airmen, right? So back in the day, there were buck sergeants that were E4s, kind of like corporals in the other services. But the nowadays senior airman still has a lot of influence, for their rank. They go to airman leadership school and they get a license to lead through their supervisor certificate. And they remind me of the dinosaur that's got the skull that's exposed on the forehead. I don't really know what that one's called, but if you point that dinosaur in a direction, it will slam its head into whatever you point it at. It's very directional, right? Kind of aggressive and very motivated. I'm not sure for what, but very motivated, probably because you're the older elder dinosaur and you told him to go attack. And then you get to staff sergeant. So E5. It's about the same in most of the military branches. E5s are also, all dinosaurs are dangerous, right? But the E5s are particularly dangerous because they're the velociraptors,
Mm.
right? So if you watched any of the Jurassic Park movies, you saw Chris Pratt with his pet Blue. It's the dinosaur that has the long nail that kind of clicks. Um, it's fine. It's fine if there's one staff sergeant. It's not fine if there are four staff sergeants and they're up to something, right? Because one will come in from a different direction you're not paying attention to, and you're going to die, right? It's over because if they have a plan in mind, they're probably going to get their goals accomplished. So that always makes me joke. But the last couple of dinosaurs I think will really make you smile. Then you get to the tech sergeant. So when you and I first came into the military, some people retired as staffs. A lot of them retired as techs because their promotions were not that prevalent. So that brings me to the Triceratops, right? It is a stoic creature, majestic almost, huge, gigantic horns, immovable objects. That's what tech sergeants are, immovable objects, and very, very defensive. And you're not really going to get it to do something it doesn't want to do, you know? I've got officer ranks also in my mind too, but this is just the enlisted
Yeah,
side.
curmudgeon-y, right?
Um,
That's a good,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But my favorite, right? My favorite defensive dinosaur. You get to Master Sergeant. Master Sergeant is none other than the famed Stegosaurus, right? So very, very long, powerful, again, stoic, just like the Triceratops, creature that doesn't really move that fast. I don't think you've ever really seen a lot of Master Sergeants move fast in general unless they're highly motivated, but their power comes from like the back end, like when you're not paying attention, because all they have to do is talk to the chief because they can. They've got that relationship.
Yeah.
And that's when that Stegosaurus tail comes in, right?
Yeah.
And knocks you off your kilter. So that's good. 2 ranks left, Martin, right? Because we have just a few minutes. Now we're going to get to the rank that you and I were for a while that no one understood, the senior master sergeant. That's the Brachiosaurus. You and I used to call it the Brontosaurus, right? Majestic, beautiful creatures, gigantic long necks. No one has any idea what their purpose is whatsoever. Why does it even live? Why does it exist? We don't know. We don't even see them that often, right? But we do think they eat salads for lunch. Know what I'm saying? Yeah. So again, that's the senior master sergeant, and of course, our favorite rank is the chief master sergeant. It's the sergeant major in the Army. It is the sergeant major or master gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, master chief in the Navy, and the Coast Guard. And it's the T-Rex, right? It is loud. It is brash. It is gigantic. It is powerful. It is the king or queen of the jungle. But it hasn't done a lot of work in a while, so the hands started getting really, really small. You know what I mean? And don't even need them. And again, if you don't move really fast in front of a chief, they won't really see you. You know what I mean? Because they're always on the move. So anyway, those are my dinosaur jokes, E1s through E9. Hope you enjoy it.
Hey, I got one thing for you.
Yeah.
That's great, man. I love the all analogies
You're
and
only
stuff.
going to use that to like splice it in. You're going to cut all of that from the stuff. But if you need a clip, for social, just to make someone smile, you can absolutely do that.
Actually, yeah, that's great. I probably will clip that. I will clip that up for sure. Jason David explains the military ranks, the enlisted ranks. I want to go back to, you talked about an idea of like you and I recording over someone's podcast, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
like
Like
just
science fiction theater 3000, 100%.
like here's a thought. So what if Joe Bass and CZ had a podcast, and then you and I just did the thing you said, we just just voice over them, right? What would the name of that
Yeah.
podcast be?
The name of the podcast, if we mirrored other people, um, I mean, it could be something like Hecklers United, right?
Yeah.
But there are other names out there where we could go. Behind the curtain, behind the curtain, like the Late Late Show with some of our guests that are out there. You'd have to give me some time to think about it, but I really do think that there's value in mockery of friends, right? Because that's what we should do. We should absolutely tease our friends
Yeah.
until they start crying.
That's something
Yeah.
people could put in the comments, is like what's a good name for the podcast where Jason and I just talk over the actual podcast host.
Yeah, yeah. We could call it manure talkers. You know what I mean?
That's good. That's really good.
Good stuff. Hey, so thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Passing the Torch. Of course, my name is Jason
Jason,
I muted myself, but I thank my special guest Martin Foster for joining me today. It was wonderful to have you on this 101st episode of Passing the Torch. It means a lot to me because I've spent a lot of time curating not just this podcast, but the whole series of interviews. Well into how long have we been doing this? About 6 7 years
8
now.
years, 8 years,
8 years,
8
8 years. So
years.
yeah, I'm going to take credit for the 8 years of work that Martin did. But again, could not be more thankful for having Martin online, and of course, subjecting himself to my barrage of questions through the interview process.
Dude, thanks for doing this, man, because I wanted to give this honor to someone, and yeah, and I was just like, man, you're perfect for this. And and we didn't prep. I mean, I thought about sending you stuff, and I was like, I was just kind of you already know, like, you're a pro, right? So you'll know, like, you'll know what to ask. But yeah, Jay, thank you so much, man. Like, this means a lot to me, and I can't wait for the next. It was important to me that I be episode 101, like, in this next series of, like, interviews, right? I'm kind of and I'm excited, man. A lot of things are going on. If anyone's looking to, and if they're not sure what to do or what to invest in 2026, it's this guy. Believe in me. Like, I'm just going for it.
Nope, I love it. And again, as we wrap today's episode, I am very, very proud to stand by your side, to advise you, to be your friend, to be your support system. I believe in this podcast. I believe in you, Martin. So, Godspeed as you make your way forward with even better episodes than this crazy one that you and I just did. But again, thankful for your presence, not just online, but in general. You're just a good man.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.